Good evening and welcome to my first evening broadcast. I'm just testing out something new. Normally I schedule the sessions, but on a whim tonight I thought let me give this a bash and let's see how it goes without scheduling. Sometimes 9 o'clock every morning is quite tough to make, especially with now that we get exercise between 6 and 9. So I've decided tonight, what a better time. I had an opportunity, thought let me see how it works if I decided I wanted to just automatically go on to do a live crossing. So let's see how it goes this evening. So tonight I'm going to be talking about confrontation. I've had a few requests to do, especially because of lockdown, especially we're all stuck at home, we're stuck with family, with some people with roommates, some people with housemates, stuck with extended family. So we a lot of us are caught up in situations, sometimes with little space, and we really can start getting on each other's nerves. So I think confrontation becomes quite a confrontation, or conflict management certainly becomes quite an important topic. So tonight's session, I want to be covering some of the styles of conflict, I think, which is quite important. So we're just going to sort of bring to your attention the different types of styles, and we're going to talk about them now, so I'm not going to get ahead of myself. And I think what's important is to understand this is a two-part series, and then the next part will follow on after this. I'll either do it tonight again or tomorrow. And the second series, each of these series is, or each of the sessions rather, are around about anything from 20 minutes to 30 minutes, somewhere around there. I don't really want to go longer than that. And I would like to, so this is just going to be a two-part series. And then from Monday, I'm going to be doing a much longer series, about 8 to 10 parts probably, on anger and the management of anger. Because as our stress levels increase, certainly, as I said, like with this lockdown situation, but it could be any situation, we tend to be stuck with expressing anger, which is also only a secondary emotion, and it's not necessarily the anger we have to deal with, but emotions that are underneath that anger. All right, so let's get stuck into tonight's session. So tonight's session, I've called it positive confrontation. There are many types of confrontation, but positive confrontation would be how do we deal with conflict in a positive way. So there's a lovely optical illusion on the first slide, and this is a window. And often I would ask a group and ask you out there, what I should have said, sorry, is if any of you are out there, please say hi. If you're checking in, give me a thumbs up or say I'm there. If you've got any questions you want to ask, just say how's it, and put some comments down. If you like it, then share it, and let's see how it goes from there. So I want to go and let's look at this window first. So this window is either going from a right or left hand side. The windows are either opening outwards or inwards. We're not sure which is it. And whoever looks at this window, it could also be looking down or it can be looking up. So depending on who's looking at the window, we'd see it in many different ways. And this is a good starting point to understand how difficult it is, because everyone looking at a situation will be looking at it from a different perspective. Okay, so tonight we're going to be looking at perspectives. We're certainly going to look at the conflict styles. We're going to look at, not in tonight's session, but in the next session, session 2 of this. Hi Faye, welcome. You must have been on Facebook. I'm just testing this out tonight, so glad, thank you for joining me. I'm not sitting here alone. I never know who's out there listening. But so we're going to be talking about the perspective, the different conflict styles, and then in session 2 we're going to look at how do we deal with this conflict, and we'll cover those 5 steps. It is what it is. Sharing is caring. Looking right, left, and right again. And that it takes 2 to tango, and then burying the hatchet. So this is what we'll cover in the next 2 sessions. This slide I've used before in other talks, but it's extremely important to understand that we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. I repeat, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So most of us are looking at life, or looking at our reality, or looking at the person in front of us through our judgmental lens, and we struggle to see that person in any other light other than through the lens that we're viewing them. And then I put these 2 slides, I've used them before, again, it's just a great illustration of how 2 different people can see 2 different things. Is this man walking up the stairs, or is he walking down the stairs, the one on the right of your screen? And the one on the left pretty much just explains there, if you're standing on the left hand side, you'll see 4 wickets. Hi Sonia, welcome, nice to see you, 3 waves. And the other guy's seeing 3 wickets. So each person, depending on where they're standing in the situation, will have a completely different view point. So I'm working with another young guy recently, and he says he likes to get into debates and arguments, and ultimately who is right, because each person is right with their own version of events. Then, I think, like Faye, I think you've been in some of my sessions, so this slide I've used before, but it plays quite nicely into a talk on conflict resolution or conflict management. Whatever we're looking for, we're going to find. So if you're looking for conflict, if you're looking for drama, you're going to find it. If you're looking for reasons why your relationship is not going where it should, you're going to find it. So one needs to decide whether you're arriving with preconceived ideas or whether you're coming with a beginner's mind. And we'll speak to beginner's mind in the second session probably a little bit. But be careful what you're looking for, because you're going to find it. And many of us think we're looking for something, but that's not what we're actually looking for. Our subconscious is looking to actually prove the opposite of what our conscious is looking for. Then this little line comes in quite often, and I read it in an article, and I love this. It's one line that stood out for me, and it says, "We only believe that which makes us happy." And happy should be in inverted commas, because some people are happy being depressed. Some people are happy being anxious. Some people are happy, and I'm putting this happy in inverted commas, some people are happy being in a destructive or a toxic relationship. Because that's what their subconscious is actually seeking, rather than to say, I want a loving, warm, caring relationship. So be careful what you're looking for, because you're going to find it, and be careful what you're trying to prove. In research, there's an idea that we talk about confirmation bias or researcher bias, that whatever you're looking for, you're going to find. So if you want to prove that cell phone towers cause cancer, it's easy to prove that. If you want to prove that cell phone towers don't cause cancer, it's easy to prove that and to put that into a report. I think similar things are happening with COVID right now. Depending on which side of the fence you stand with this COVID and lockdown, will be how you're responding to the lockdown. So remember these two things: seek and you shall find, and we only believe that which makes us happy. So let's have a look at these 5 characteristic conflict behaviors. Withdrawing. Another word for withdrawing is avoidance or avoiding. Forcing is the competitive style. We can call it competitive. Soothing would be the accommodating style, the person that's very accommodating. Compromising stays as compromising. And then confrontational would be, confrontation sounds like a negative word, but we are talking about positive confrontation. So confrontation, another word for a confrontational style is a collaborative style. It's when someone wants to solve something, so we need to confront it. And it's not confronting in a forceful way, it's confronting in a collaborating way. We're trying to resolve it, and we cannot resolve it unless we confront it. So these are the 5 basic styles, and I'm going to sort of go a little bit deeper into them now and talk a little bit about them. So the first one, the withdrawing or avoiding, this is where someone walks away, runs away, locks himself in the room. So there's a physical or an emotional retreat, or even puts up shutters and gives the cold shoulder and just won't engage. There is an advantage. Every one of these we're going to go through the advantages and disadvantages. Obviously the advantage is the conflict ceases. And each of these styles is a time when we should be using it. So for example, one of the times we should be using avoidance is I guess if there's children, or you're arguing in a car or in a restaurant or in front of friends and you don't want to discuss it there and then. So there's a place for this. So the one advantage is the conflict ceases there and then. However, the disadvantage is the underlying problem issue is not addressed. And secondly, it can leave very uncomfortable residual feelings, which are now unexpressed emotions that are going to stick with you. So if you're going to avoid, it's extremely important that you then bring it up or discuss it at a later stage at a more suitable time. Otherwise, it becomes, again, a pattern or a style of sweeping everything under the carpet, which just builds up resentment ultimately and creates a lot of problems further down the line. I think I've said everything I needed to say around this one. So, there's one other, that's why I thought there was something else I wanted to say. One of the things I wanted to say is, in each style, there's going to be the rights of others on a scale of 0 to 10, and then there's the rights of myself on a scale of 0 to 10. And when it comes to withdrawing or avoiding, often people have said to me they think they're giving higher rights to the other person because they're avoiding the argument and walking away. But you're not. You're lowering your own rights and you're lowering the rights of the other person, because you're not giving the other person a chance to confront or say their say. You're walking away and you're also not respecting yourself. So avoidance involves low rights or low respect for myself and for the other person. Then it comes to forcing. So this is a very bullying, competitive style. And again, it's characteristic of individuals who must win at all costs. A lot of attacking, intimidating, shouting, swearing, being belligerent, but can have a lot of styles, certainly very much a bullying style of attack. This slide says it has no advantages. There are advantages to the competitive style. So when you are trying to get an increase, because it's very much all about me, okay, so this one, my rights are high and the other person's rights are low. So there is one advantage, and that is if you need to go for you're trying to get a salary increase, or you're striving for a goal, then it doesn't matter about other people, and then it is all about me. So, but it needs to be used sparingly, and certainly not in a relationship would you be arguing using this style, because like I said, it comes across as extremely bullying. The disadvantages, again, conflict is not resolved, probably would end up in the other party walking away. The conflict can definitely escalate, because if you shout, sometimes the person may mirror that and start shouting back. And it can also be suppressed if others withdraw, like I said. So if the other person leaves the engagement, sometimes people use this style because it's one way that they think that they're winning, or they want the style to the argument to end, and then the other person walks away. Then this person thinks they've won because they've belittled the other person, or the other person's walked away. But the problem is not resolved either. All right, so this is with the forcing or the competitive style of engagement. Then the soothing or accommodating style. This is very useful if you're trying to build relationships. So we need this, they call it the honeymoon phase. So when you first meet someone, everyone's wonderful and everything goes great for 3 months, and then people start settling into their groove, and then we move away from it. So the soothing or the accommodating style is great because it's a good technique if there's a lot of feelings involved. But again, this one is my rights are not respected, but I'm happy to raise your rights in order to accommodate or to soothe. So I'll give you your way. Again, we shouldn't be using any one of these styles only. We need to have all 5 styles in our suitcase when we're going to be in a situation, because different situations will require different styles of engagement. So just to repeat, the soothing or accommodating style is about the honeymoon phase. It stops the conflict from escalating and becoming more intense. It's a great technique if you want to just get everyone to calm down. But the disadvantage is it can be manipulative, especially if the soother or the accommodator is meeting their own needs and not taking into account the needs of others. So it can be quite manipulative from an emotional point of view. The person might say, okay, well, as long as you get your way, it's fine, I'll step back. But it's not helpful. So use this very sparingly, again, in your arsenal. Then the compromising. This is a great style. This way each person gets to be respected, and each person just has to take a little bit step back and take a bit less than what they wanted out of the situation. So this occurs when both sides give up something to arrive at a solution or resolution. It's a win-win, so it's a very assertive style of engagement. But the disadvantage is it assumes both parties are willing to resolve, and this is not always the case. Sometimes the other party just wants to fight for the sake of fighting, or for the sake of bullying, or whatever it might be, and it's not helpful if the other person's not engaged. So if you can't get the other party to sit at the table, or you cannot get them around the table to say, let's solve this problem, it's impossible to solve. So it doesn't matter that you're trying to compromise or negotiate, it's not going to happen. And some people perceive compromising as losing. So even just to give a little bit will be seen as a loss, and they will not be prepared to budge. So this does not work with rigid thinkers or black and white thinkers. Okay, it's very difficult for them to compromise, because to a black and white thinker, there's only right or wrong. Then confronting. As I said, the word confronting itself sounds slightly negative, but shouldn't be seen that way. The confrontational style is, another word for this would be the collaborative style. So this assumes that there's a relationship to be preserved. It also should assume that both parties are mature enough to believe that there's a relationship to be preserved, and we're not dealing with egos that don't want to appear to be losing, and that both parties want it to be preserved. So the advantage here is that it's a skill that can be learned. It's certainly not forced, and it is by invitation only. You know, let's sit down around the table, and we'll talk about this as I said, in a subsequent session of how do we do this and how do we engage around this. Some of the disadvantages is it can be seen as synonymous with attack. So if I say to you, we need to talk about this, depending on the tone I use, depending on the body language, depending on how the other person, their emotional state, it can be seen as an attack. Meanwhile, you're just stepping forward and saying, let's confront the situation. And the other party, of course, may not accept the invitation. So it has limited usefulness. And it's really, really tough. We were taught in marital therapy, if the one party is not prepared, if the one party's already got a foot out the door, or both feet out the door, marital therapy is not going to work. So the husband or the wife might pull their partner into couples therapy, and the one party doesn't want to be there. They're already disengaged, so confronting the problem is not going to serve any purpose other than prolonging the agony, and that party may as well get divorced, because until that other party decides to reinvest some energy in the relationship, it's never going to work out. All right, so I think I'm going to rather end there. So it'll be a short session. Well, it's 15 minutes, but I'm going to end there and then we'll move on. I'm going to put this as a second little video, dealing with conflict and looking at the different ways of dealing. And I think I've got some time tonight, so if you hang around and you are still on Facebook, then you might be able to see this. I'm just going to stop it here, and then I will put the other one in as a second video. Okay, so thank you for joining me. If you liked it, or if you think anyone could benefit from this, as I said, give it a like or give it a shout out and share it with your friends. But thanks for joining me.